Well, the Golden Globe nominations have been announced, and we've got some shocking omissions and surprising inclusions among the TV nominees. I'm Zach Laws of Gold Derby, here to discuss our fellow contributing editors, Charles Bright and Kevin Jacobsen. Let's just start off, Charlie. It's so hard to predict what the Globe voters are going to do when it comes to TV. They're not like the Emmy voters. They don't go for the same thing over and over again. They like to reward new shows. So what jumped out at you as, shows that stuck around, shows that came in? Give us your thoughts.
Well, usually I like to see which shows can, net like 3 nominations, usually like a program, a lead performer, and a supporting performer. And a couple of those did come around. As far as I could tell, though, I think the only one that actually did that of the 2 series was Barry and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
And Kaminsky Method, I believe.
Oh, that's right. Kaminsky Method did it too. So I think we have an interesting race in the TV series musical or comedy race. I think that's going to be a really interesting race. I'm thinking that Barry and Bill Hader could pull this one out, and Bill could have a matching Golden Globe to go with his Emmy from this past September.
I should say, also looking at the list, Homecoming was another new show that got a lead and 2 leads nominations.
Yeah, 2 leads.
2 lead nominations. And also, The Americans got series and 2 lead nominations. Usually when a show is over, Globe voters don't tend to reward it. But, this is that rare exception. Kevin, tell us what jumped out at you.
Yeah, well, that is exactly what jumped out at me, is the fact that they have embraced The Americans in its final season. Took you long enough, but here we are. And the fact that it's literally the only returning show in the best drama race is just kind of a funny little anomaly to me. Definitely a lot of turnover there. But on the other side, we have The Good Place, which makes a big splash finally with that plus Kristen Bell. Would have loved to see Ted Danson too, but definitely really thrilled for them. And ironically enough, I think someone like Kristen Bell could actually win, despite being on her 3rd season, because there is the series nomination, which they like to have when they're also rewarding actress. And, they've done Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I don't know if they are going to do it again. It's possible. It seems like the kind of show that they would love to just reward again if they don't have anything else. But The Good Place is very strong, so I think that's a possibility.
I think one thing to keep in mind there is there are only 2 shows I could think of that really have had longevity at the Globes in terms of wins, at least in my immediate memory. One is Sex and the City, which won the comedy series and Sarah Jessica Parker like 3 years in a row, or maybe even 4 years in a row. I can't remember. And the other one was Mad Men, which actually Marvelous Mrs. Maisel has elements of both of those because it's comedy about New York and it's also a period piece as well. So that could actually go pretty well for it.
Yeah.
Well, let's just go through. There's a lot to pick apart here. Let's start with comedy. So the comedy series nominees are Barry, The Good Place, Kidding, The Kaminsky Method, and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Maisel is the only returning show. It won last year. Kevin, as you said, The Good Place is here in its 3rd season for the first time. The other shows, Barry, Kidding, and The Kaminsky Method, are all 1st season shows. Maisel is a prime example. They love to reward something in its 1st season. They don't usually like to go back to the well more than once. So what are we thinking in terms of what's going to sweep here? Also, surprising exclusions. I think probably the most, the craziest one is probably Atlanta not coming back for a 2nd time.
Yeah. I also kind of suspected that it wasn't exactly a Globes-friendly show to begin with, to be honest. Yeah. So I didn't necessarily think, I thought it was on shaky ground. Let's just say that. So Donald Glover got in at least. So
Well, I will say I thought that when the show first came on a couple of years ago, and I had that mindset. I refused to predict it for the wins for comedy series and best actor, and boy did I eat crow on that one.
I think one of the things that might have hurt Atlanta is let's not forget this. So Globe voters operate on a different calendar than Emmy voters, right? So Atlanta won comedy series and comedy actor in 2016 for its first season.
Yeah.
Then it was not eligible in 2017 because it didn't air in 2017. It was eligible 2 years in a row at the Emmys because of their calendar. So, do you think maybe there was a kind of, they might have just sort of forgotten about it, especially with all these shiny new objects in front of them?
That certainly was part of it for sure. So, yeah.
And I think there's probably the the mindset of possibly that we already rewarded this. We were the first ones to do it. We did it before the Emmys did it in 2017. So we're all good. So we're happy with where we are.
So one of the things that's interesting about the series race in the Globes is usually they will win series and also a lead acting prize, right? So we mentioned Maisel, Atlanta before it. Transparent as well did this. So we're looking at the shows that have lead acting nominations as well. Good Place with Kristen Bell, Maisel with Rachel Brosnahan, Kaminsky Method, and what?
They all have it.
Yeah. So what do we think? Yeah, kidding. Jim Carrey, Bill Hader, Michael Douglas, the Kaminsky Method. What seems like the most likely pairing?
I honestly don't know. I'm kind of thinking possibly Barry with Bill Hader, but then again, I think of the Kaminsky Method, and sometimes as they love rewarding, even though it is they have a whole section for movie stars in the television categories. They love rewarding movie stars, and there's Michael Douglas there. He just won a couple of years ago for Behind the Candelabra. It would be interesting if they were to win. I honestly don't know. I would say probably Barry, but Maisel or Good Place could probably do it too.
Well, I'm a little suspicious of them rewarding Barry because the Emmys did kind of go there first. It didn't get the series win, but it got two big acting prizes, Bill Hader and Henry Winkler. So I'm thinking maybe, Kaminsky Method or Kidding are new shows in relation to Barry. So whatever's the newest is presumably in front, in which case I would say the Kaminsky Method, which also, for what it's worth, got into the AFI top 10 TV shows of 2018. So there's something to that possibly. Michael Douglas is who he is. The fact that Alan Arkin gets in too, when, as we said in the film chat, he didn't even get nominated for Little Miss Sunshine all those years ago. So seems like there's some support there.
And it says something too if a TV show can get a supporting nomination on the Globe side, because they only have one supporting category for drama and for comedy and for limited series. So we have Alan Arkin, we have Alex Borstein from Maisel, who else?
Henry Winkler.
And Henry Winkler from Barry. So that does give them a leg up. Those three shows.
Absolutely. I will say just one other thing on the series race is that one of the things that our benevolent overlord Tom O'Neill likes to talk about is praise be is the idea of the apple in a basket of oranges. And I'm looking at those best comedy series nominees, and 4 out of the 5 of them are about people in show business. And that leaves The Good Place. And I think that would actually be a really interesting win if The Good Place were able to pull that off. And they do like Michael Schur. They didn't give Parks and Rec a win, but they did give Brooklyn Nine-Nine a win a couple of years ago. So that could actually be pretty good for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, going off of that, let's turn to the drama side, where last year's winner of The Handmaid's Tale did not come back. It did get in for acting for Elizabeth Moss, who won last year, and Yvonne Strahovski switched out with Ann Dowd. We have The Americans, as we mentioned before, Bodyguard, which is the most Globes thing I've ever seen, Homecoming, Killing Eve, and Pose. So, which of these is like the hot new drama series that they're going to want to put their mark on? What do you guys think?
Well, they're all pretty hot. You know, they all have big, sexy stars in them, which is very Globesy. Killing Eve helps that we have Sandra Oh also hosting. Presumably, she is a frontrunner in drama actress, probably even over Julia Roberts. You know, that is a possibility. But Pose, in a way, is so groundbreaking, you know, and that is a show that has not been really rewarded too much along the way so far. I think they would love to put a stamp on that show and say we got there first. And the fact that Billy Porter gets into Best Actor, you know, he is a Tony-winning star, but he's not like a superstar type of actor. So I think that's a big sign that they did love the show. I would have loved to have seen some of the actual, you know, actresses on the show get some representation here, but I think that's a good sign for that show. But Killing Eve is also a possibility, so I don't really know.
Yeah, this is another big question mark. What I think is, part of me kind of wants to give an edge to Bodyguard because it's the most recent of those shows in terms of being the freshness, and it sort of just hit that, you know, cultural zeitgeist like right at the perfect moment for this. So a lot of people like probably do know about it, but it's just it's peaking at that right time. So I'm tempted to go with that one, or possibly Killing Eve.
Plus, that guy on Bodyguard is such a hunk. I mean, I looked him up. I said, oh, of course he's going to be on the red carpet. That's such like a who's that guy on Outlander? Sam Heughan, right? He got in a couple of years for. So he took that guy's spot. Speaking of Outlander, I mean, Katrina Balfe just continues to hold on.
4 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, she's up against last year's winner, Elizabeth Moss, Julia Roberts for Homecoming, Sandra Oh for Killing Eve, and Kerry Russell in The Americans. I'm guessing you're right, Charlie. That's got to be Sandra Oh's to lose, having just come off that Emmy nomination. But what about Kerry Russell? I mean, so she did not win the Emmy for The Americans, even though Matthew Rhys did, and the show won for writing. Could they maybe want to make up for that?
It's possible, but then I would also put in there that what's interesting about this, the Best Actress drama race on television, 4 of those 5 are Globe winners, are already Globe winners. Elizabeth Moss has won 2, Sandra Oh won for Grey's Anatomy, Julia Roberts has won several, and Kerry Russell won back in the 90s for Felicity. So, you know, part of me just wants to go, hey, let's just pick Katrina Balfe, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. I'm not going to say
it's a charm.
Yeah, I'm not going to say never, because every time I joke about something never happening, i.e. John Mulaney and Margot Martindale, it always does happen. So, I think Sandra Oh is probably the safe bet here.
Yeah.
What happened to The Handmaid's Tale? Why did they not go back to that?
Well, it's very reminiscent of what happened with the Emmys, when it was kind of shockingly shut out of wins, at least this season. And I think it's just the bloom is kind of off the rose a bit. And there was a lot of the backlash of it being a little too brutal. You know, a lot of people stopped watching. It was less of the big timely thing that it was in season 1. So, yeah, but I am surprised because it is Hulu and it did just win. And it did get into acting nominations, but yeah.
Another big Emmy snub, we had This Is Us, completely skunked. That show had gotten in a couple of times in the past. And there was one more.
That didn't surprise me, though.
Yeah. Oh, Westworld. So Westworld gets in for Thandie Newton, but not for series either. And I guess this is like the second year in a row that HBO has not had a Best Drama Series nomination, although they're not wanting for they're not hurting for bids between Barry and Sharp Objects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking of sharp objects, I guess we can go to the limited series race. We've got, hold on, I just lost the, here we go. We've got American Crime Story, Versace, which is the reigning champ at the Emmys. We've got The Alienist, which continues to get in despite the odds.
to puzzle us all.
Yeah. We've got Escape at Dannemora. And we've got these two fresh, hot ones, Sharp Objects and A Very English Scandal, both of which got 2 acting nominations apiece. Versace managed to get 3. And Alienist got in for Daniel Bruhl. Escape at Dannemora got in for Patricia Arquette. So, I mean, they've all got kind of a strong showing. Are they just going to repeat what the Emmys did with Versace, or are they going to try to predict next year's Emmy winners?
Well, I don't know, because I think we last time American Crime Story was up at the Golden Globes, it was the OJ miniseries, which had just come off sweeping the Emmys, and we thought it was good, and a lot of us thought it was going to do it again at the Globes, and then it did win TV movie and TV movie actress for Sarah Paulson, but that's where it stopped. And then you had The Night Manager come in with wins for Tom Hiddleston, Olivia Colman, and Hugh Laurie. So part of me is thinking that I think Darren Criss is probably pretty safe. It just seems like after he won that Emmy that this is the type of performance that would probably go the distance and also pick up Globe and SAG. But, you know, they may just reward him there and try, you know, other things in other areas. I wouldn't be surprised to see A Very English Scandal. I remember that from what I've been hearing from a lot of people who just really love it. I think that's one to keep an eye out for.
Yeah. And speaking of The Night Manager, I was a little surprised that The Little Drummer Girl didn't get any nominations. It's another John le Carré adaptation for AMC, but there's that. There's also, I just wanted to note that they either didn't watch or didn't like Maniac, which,
yeah,
you know, like even Emma Stone, Jonah Hill, there's a lot of big stars in there. It's Netflix, and it just totally blanked.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as what did get in, I would say that A Very English Scandal certainly has the tawdry sexiness to it that they typically go for. And they did get in Hugh Grant and Ben Whishaw, which is good. Sharp Objects I can see being kind of divisive, as it has been, at least, I don't know, for my Twitter feed at least, it's been divisive. So I don't know about Gianni Versace, because it didn't have the same amount of critical mass that OJ did. So,
yeah, and I think you really got to look out for Hugh Grant in that actor category. I mean, I think that he's probably, I would put him ahead of Darren Criss as of right now, just because, you know, he is Hugh Grant. He has been rewarded at the Globes and nominated several times. You know, having said that, you know, I think Amy Adams is probably going to win her Globe as well for Sharp Objects. So we might not know what the heck to pick on the night. It is interesting, as an aside, speaking of Amy Adams, we've got all these people who, like Julia Roberts and Stephen James and Hugh Grant and Ben Whishaw, all these people who could have contended for films as well, who ended up getting in on the TV side. I think that Amy Adams and Regina King are the only 2 people who were able to get in to both.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see if they actually like split between the 2 of them, reward one or the other, or just give the same to both.
You never know. You never know. I mean, Kate Winslet will tell you that firsthand.
Yeah.
So then, are there any other surprising inclusions or omissions that stuck out at you guys? Anything that, you know, we haven't already talked about?
I have something a little surprising, which is that Deborah Messing got in.
Yeah, after being skunked for the 10th season, or
right.
What?
So this is the 10th season of Will and Grace / the 2nd season of The Revival.
Mm-hmm.
Eric McCormack and the show got in last year. Deborah Messing didn't get in. Now Deborah Messing is nominated here. I don't know if that's just like a lack of contenders in the race, that they didn't know anyone else, you know, they wanted to nominate, so they're just like, we like Deborah Messing.
Okay, but I will make a vow right here. I bought into the crap that you guys were peddling about Eric McCormick winning last year, and at the last moment, I switched from Aziz Ansari to Eric McCormick, and I hated myself. I flogged myself after that win. So, if I don't think anybody's going to be, I don't think many people are going to be picking Never Messing to win, but I am just going to, no matter what, keep me off that train if it starts getting steam.
They were pretty nostalgic in that category. They also put in Candice Bergen for Murphy Brown.
Yeah, that was surprising. I was really surprised she got in.
Yeah, it is really. I mean, just speaking about people who got left out. I'm so sad that even though they embraced The Good Place, they did not put in Ted Danson. Although it's hard to see who they would have left out. I guess like the most shocking inclusion would be Sacha Baron Cohen for Who Is America. Just because I don't know if you even count that as, in a comedy series. I guess it does, but it's sort of more of a variety show, I suppose. I don't know. But, obviously, I mean, it would be one. I almost wanted to win just to see what who he shows up as.
Yeah, I could definitely see it happening. They want a big moment. It's possible.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't even have to show up as a character, because if you remember his acceptance speech when he won for Borat, he wasn't in character. He was just as himself. And that was definitely one of the best acceptance speeches I've ever seen at not the Globes or any other ceremony.
Well, I think we've run this topic into the ground, at least for now. Be sure to update your predictions at goldderby.com, and be sure to come back and check on us for more of our insights into this wacky Golden Globes race and the awards race in general. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Charlie, and thank you, Kevin.